The question is that the motion be agreed to. I call Jackie Dean.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I want to firstly congratulate Ian Lees-Galloway in bringing this bill to the House. It's always...
No, it doesn't deserve any congratulations.
Yes, of course, every member deserves congratulations for bringing a member's bill to the House, and it is a great thing and it is a great privilege for a member of Parliament to have the ability to bring a member's bill to the House, and with that privilege comes a high degree of responsibility. Right. And therein lies the issue, one of the issues I have with this member's bill. And it is to do with the fact that it is completely out of date. And that concerns me for a member who comes to the House and wishes to implement quite sweeping changes to the Electoral Act across a number of fronts, brings a faulty bill to the New Zealand Parliament, and I find that extraordinary that a member would do that, and it rather undermines any argument that that member might advance towards his bill. So if we go back in history a little about this Electoral Adjustment of Thresholds Amendment Bill, and because the member himself wished to go back in history, so let's do our own little bit of history and recall that this is a bill which was first brought to the House by the Honourable Marion Street back in, Leanne Dalziel back in 2012. That's right. So back in 2012, the bill sat in the ballot, as do a number of bills, and it wasn't drawn by the time of the 2014 election, it wasn't drawn by the time the Honourable Leanne Dalziel left the House. So I'm thanking the member for helping me with the history because here we get to the nub of the argument, is that this is the member's history, of course, which is why I'm seeking his help with it, and I'm grateful for it. But if the member cares so much about the history around this bill, then maybe he might have thought to update the objectives of the bill, which I would have thought were pretty pertinent to the debate at hand. So I would invite that member to approach the bill's table, pick up a copy of what is now his bill, because he did pick it up on behalf of the Honourable Leanne Dalziel, who left Parliament, and promoted it as his own bill, and has argued very passionately in this House this afternoon towards the objectives of the bill. Unfortunately, the objectives are out of date. Well, you see, and now the member is trying to defend himself by saying that it is not the substance of the bill. Let me help the member, and I will read from page 1 of the bill, objectives. And these are Ian Lees-Galloway's words. This bill proposes to implement the main provisions of the Electoral Commission review of MMP in time for the 2014 election.
Yes, because it was drawn before the 2014 election.
This bill is out of date. This bill is out of date. This member did not take the opportunity to update the wording in his own bill. Well, Mr Speaker, point of order.
Point of order from Jackie. The first the first point of order was from Jackie Dean.
Yes, thank you.
I'll hear Jackie Dean.
Mr Speaker, rare and reasonable interjections are fine, but I think a barrage of shouting is a little unreasonable.
You an idiot, sir.
I'm the judge of that. I hear what the honourable member is saying. I did indicate to the member who was interjecting that was unacceptable, and I know he won't do it again because I'm not on the frame. Now, I'm calling Jackie Dean.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr Speaker. And I do find it distressing that even now the member has not caught on, if you like, to the fact that he did not take the opportunity when he assumed ownership of this bill to update the bill, and felt that it was acceptable to bring a bill to the House in this state. And I just perhaps turn to page 2, and right at the very bottom, the member might care to do that. He clearly hasn't looked at this bill since he assumed it, and maybe he might have taken the time before bringing the bill to the House to have a look at the final sentence on page 2. That is why, in order to keep faith with the integrity of the referendum, these changes must be implemented in time for the 2014 general election. Is this lazy work on behalf of this member? It is indeed very lazy work on behalf of this member who could not even read the bill, his own bill. It's pretty symptomatic of that party, I'd contend. Too lazy to read his own bill before he resubmitted it in the ballot, and now we have an objective in the bill which is out of date. However, and I think he's been hurt a bit because he's getting a bit personal. I think that might have cut a little bit deep. However, point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Jackie Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Similar to my first point of order, rare and reasonable interjections, I know, but a barrage of noise, perhaps not.
Well, I hear what the member is saying, and I just ask from now on that we actually concentrate on the content. I'm on my feet. Well, I'm standing. Is that we concentrate on the substance of what is in a first reading and some material now related with 4 minutes to go on what's actually in the bill. Thank you. Jackie Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And so it is, well, it's no surprise, I would imagine, that National does not support this bill. National opposes this bill. It's shoddy, it's lazy, and it takes no account of the proper processes which undermine the electoral process in New Zealand. New Zealand is so fortunate that our electoral system has a very high level of integrity, and I would have thought that any member bringing a bill to this House around the electoral system would at least have presented a bill that wasn't so laughably out of date. Post the 2014 election, or prior to the last election, new electoral laws were passed, which is why it's so embarrassing that this member has brought this bill to the House now, to provide better services to voters, to candidates and to political parties. So a number of changes were made, enable people to enrol and update their details fully online, very beneficial particularly for people residing overseas. The laws changed to make loans to parties subject to disclosure rules, greater transparency in our electoral law, and allowed parties to lodge bulk candidate nomination and party list documents by email. Good process underlined and underpinned those changes. Good process is integral to good electoral law, not, I would imagine, out-of-date, lazy members' bills. So it's important to continuously improve our law and processes in light of changing tech. Mr. Speaker, point of order.
Point of order, Jackie Dean.
Mr. Speaker, I am attempting to make a contribution to this debate, but there is a barrage of noise coming across.
This is a debating chamber.
That's right.
And I don't want any comments when I'm ruling. This is a debating chamber. I'm the judge of whether I feel that the barracking is unacceptable, and in that case I didn't accept that it was. And so with 2 minutes remaining, I'll ask the member to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would invite the member who is obviously so passionate about this issue that he presented to the bill to the House, which was horrendously out of date, that he make a submission to the inquiry into the 2014 general election. And while the member may feel that a way to influence electoral law is to do it by way of a member's bill, I believe that a more substantive way and a more responsible way is to, in fact, make a submission to the inquiry into the general election. And in fact, I invite the member to do that. In fact, I go further than that. I challenge the member to do that, because he raises some substantive issues, which of course were raised in the review already. So we have kept in the Justice and Electoral Committee, we have kept the terms of reference deliberately wide and open so that all views can be heard. So instead of cherry-picking a few recommendations, which were the, originally from a previous member of this House, nothing wrong with that, but instead of cherry-picking a couple of issues, it would be better, in my view, to, when we are looking at electoral roll, to look at it as a whole, far more, a process with far more integrity than just looking at one narrow part of electoral law. So, in closing, Mr. Speaker, National will not be supporting this out-of-date, narrow-focused bill, which has been picked up by Ian Lees-Galloway, but I do invite, indeed challenge him to make a submission in the proper place, which is to the Justice and Electoral's review of the 2014 general election. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker.
Called Jacinda Ardern.